Central Texas is pushing past the pandemic, the area continuing to grow despite shutdowns and setbacks caused by COVID-19. The housing market is skyrocketing, reaching record highs, while struggles with taxes and rent are prominent.
What we're going to need is something that addresses the sort of financial stress that is increasing both with our residents and our rental housing providers.
Renters and landlords are making sacrifices, and the manufacturing industry has shouldered the burden of Austin's economy.
We've added 2,000 jobs to the economy since COVID started.
The pandemic changing lives of artists across the city. The performing arts industry struggling to stay afloat before the curtain falls. This is Boomtown, pushing past the pandemic, a KVUE special presentation. Thanks for joining us for part 2 of this special. I'm Terry Gruca. COVID-19 reached Central Texas about a year ago, and in that time we've seen small businesses close, larger ones expand, and all of that has had an impact on our housing industry. The real estate market is hotter than ever, and that's creating its own set of challenges. In the recipe of life, buying a house is like taking the cake. Getting there requires all the right ingredients, which is why buying a house in Central Texas is not easy.
It's definitely discouraging. It's frustrating.
Blake Triplett has lived in Austin 5 years. He's looking for a little more space and hoping to take advantage of the low interest rates, but his search has proven difficult.
There's so little inventory and so much competition, and people spending what would normally, or even in recent history, be crazy amounts of money for houses that sometimes aren't even that great.
He's been outbid on homes 4 times.
I don't think there is a situation where you're not going to ever be in a multiple offer situation at this point. And we're not just talking about 2 or 3, it's like 15, 20, 30 offers, which is just kind of nuts.
Susan Horton, Austin Board of Realtors president, is helping Blake search in a market with an all-time low inventory.
What inventory? As of today, in Travis and Williamson County, there are approximately 500 houses for sale. If you look at the total 5-county Austin MSA, we have approximately 700 homes to sell.
Typically, this area has triple that amount. It's not uncommon for houses to be under contract before the for sale sign gets put in the front yard. Oftentimes for thousands more than asking price.
When you've got a home that's $399,000 that really should be probably $350-ish, it's already a little over the market, and then you see it sell for over $500. These are crazy times.
And that's becoming the norm.
We're seeing offers at 10, 15, 20, 40% over ask because people need homes.
Tracking these trends is more difficult in Texas. The state doesn't require buyers to disclose what they paid for their homes. It's why Realtor Chris Jacobs created the Housing Report, a monthly look at prices across Central Texas using data from MLS listings. He has found it nearly impossible to find a home for less than $400,000, even in what some used to consider are affordable suburbs like Cedar Park. Homes there are selling on average for $66,000 over asking price.
Their average close this year was $491,000, and we always thought of Cedar Park as the affordable area to go get a first-time home and kind of land and live in Austin and still be able to commute. But at $491,000, that's quickly approaching not first-time home buyers.
It's not just Cedar Park. Look at the average prices for homes that have sold since January. The average price in Austin is $723,000, $40,000 over asking price. Pflugerville, $372,000. Round Rock, $408,000. Leander's average close was $485,000. And in Del Valley, where the new Tesla plant is being built, the average close, $545,000.
It's brutal. Brutal!
Sacher Chapman Thomas has been a realtor in Austin 25 years. She helps first-time and long-time homebuyers.
It's unaffordable. That's what we have. We do not have affordable workforce housing in the Austin area.
Record low inventory creates challenges for new home builds, too. Some builders are offering lots to the highest bidder or raising prices as they open lots. So houses that sold for $429,000 last month are selling for thousands more now.
Who wants to sit there and go and know that I started at $429 and due to nothing that I did, the price is now $479, and you're told that's the price, and you either deal with it and get on board and buy or next. And they can do that because they have a list of probably 150 people who are waiting to get in that neighborhood.
The reality is, compared to other places like California, Chicago, New York, homes here are still a relative bargain. And with so many companies moving here, people from those areas realize they get a lot more for their money, and they bring cash.
But when you are competing with an investor who has cash or another buyer who has cash, financing loses every single time.
The recipe for success is definitely changing. Austin used to be full of sweet deals.
You feel like you just kind of can't win and catch a break. And it honestly makes you really worried too, not, am I going to be getting myself into something that I'm not going to be able to handle in the future?
Now, hopeful homebuyers like Blake worry they may be biting off more than they can chew. While homes are selling fast, renters are struggling to find places they can afford. KVUE's Darren Shaharan shows us the prices here in Austin are beginning to drop, but Austin still has some of the highest rents across the state.
The apartment search was pretty difficult to begin with.
Finding an apartment in Austin is easy. Finding one in your budget may be a different story. And that's what Luis Castro quickly realized after speaking with his realtor about his move from Houston to Austin.
The first time when she sent me $1,200, I was like, remember, I want an apartment. I don't want a house. Like, I don't want to, rent a house. That's just too much. And she's like, no, these are apartments.
A lot has changed since the University of Texas graduate moved away 6 years ago, according to apartments.com. Despite Austin seeing one of the biggest drops in apartment rents in the country in 2020, it's still the most expensive market in Texas. Their data shows as of January, average apartment rents are just over $1,300 a month in Austin, compared to just over $1,200 in Dallas-Fort Worth, $1,100 in Houston, and closer to $1,050 in San Antonio.
So my budget was $800 max. I was hoping not to exceed that, but I was looking for something around the $650, $700 range, which I guess was asking for too much.
Castro is one of millions of Americans trying to get back on their feet after the COVID-19 pandemic swept away jobs. After 2 months of pushing his start date back for his new job here in Austin and tightening his budget, the chemist found a 700 square foot, 1-bedroom unit in North Austin for about $870 a month with a 9-month lease.
I was hoping it would be somewhere a little more spacious because not just this apartment, it's like the highways right there, so going to sleep is pretty difficult.
Sacrifices had to be made by both tenants and landlords during the pandemic.
Our rental housing providers have faced increasing expenses, as the taxes have gone up, insurance premiums, just all the expenses with addressing COVID and all the equipment. And
Emily Blair with the Austin Apartment Association said their goal is always to keep people in their home, but the halt on evictions for almost a year is adding to the financial pressure on both ends.
What we're going to need is something that addresses the sort of financial stress that is increasing both with our residents and our rental housing providers.
Blair said the apartment rental market in our area is also dealing with the lowest drop in occupancy since the 2009 recession. Blair said by the end of 2020, area-wide occupancy fell to 89% when it's usually 92%. Sam Tenenbaum, the director of analytics for apartments.com, said there are a few reasons for the drop.
It seems like the people that are moving to Austin are just waiting till they buy a house until they make the move for the most part, rather than in years past.
There's been a huge demand for single-family homes, and we've seen the price of that really skyrocket. But we're also looking at they're facing some supply constraints, and the price keeps going up for single-family homes.
For apartments, supply isn't the issue. In 2020, over 12,000 apartment units were added, and over 11,000 units are expected to be added this year, like the ones here at the Domain, which all plays a role in our low apartment occupancy rate.
There are only 4 other major markets in the country that have built more apartments than we have in Austin. That's Dallas, I should say the Dallas-Fort Worth Metro, New York, and Houston, and then we're number 4.
Tenenbaum said the drop in occupancy hit harder in areas like downtown, but submarkets like Round Rock and Cedar Park actually saw a positive turn.
That migration to the suburbs was already happening pre-COVID, and I think COVID accelerated that move. Whether it's because folks lost their job, or they can work remotely, or they need to trade up to a bigger apartment because they need an office at home.
Tenenbaum said many apartment providers are offering deals like 1 or 2 months rent free to get units filled.
But in the grand scheme of the country, that $1,300 mark that we have here in Austin is actually below the national average. It's why we continue to see people moving from the Bostons, the New Yorks, the LAs, the San Franciscos to come to Austin because it is relatively cheaper.
In the last year, we've seen big tech giants like Tesla and Oracle head to Austin, giving the weird city a new nickname, Silicon Hills. And the wave isn't expected to stop there.
I know that in 9 months there's a potential of my price going up or having to find a different place.
For now, only time will tell if Austin will live up to its new nickname and whether average working Americans like Castro will be able to find affordable apartments within the city limits. In Austin, I'm Darrenisha Heron.
As more businesses move here, there's increasing pressure to look at the incentives some of them are provided. Cities and counties provide their own incentives, and since 2004, the Texas Enterprise Fund has awarded $677 million to companies that have committed to investing $34 billion in capital investments and creating more than 104,000 jobs. Those include several deals from companies right here in Austin, like Samsung, Facebook, and Apple. But the KVUE defenders also found that between 2019 and 2020, 15 companies terminated those agreements because they couldn't meet the requirements, putting $4 million back into the state's fund. As much as those incentives have helped some of these bigger companies, smaller companies have really suffered during COVID. The KVUE defenders looked at records from sales tax revenue figures and found the biggest cities in Central Texas have suffered the most. Austin and Round Rock are the only two reporting year-over-year losses. According to the latest records, Austin lost 751 businesses in the last year, Round Rock 427. Every other suburb gained businesses despite the pandemic. In fact, overall, 10 major cities in Central Texas gained 2,890 businesses in the last year. Throughout the pandemic, the manufacturing industry has really helped prop up the local economy. So Austin's lost fewer jobs than many other larger cities across the country. KVUE's Mike Marute shows us how the manufacturing industry has fared in the last year.
By April, we had produced 4 times our normal volume.
At the start of the pandemic, Austin-based Luminex started making COVID-19 tests. The demand for tests demanded more workers.
We started hiring people, and we've gone from about 25 normal staff to over 100 in the group already.
The tests put together by employees of Aries and Luminex can give the results of a COVID-19 test in about 2.5 hours. With so many companies and health authorities wanting tests, Luminex will soon go almost fully automated to keep up with orders.
We have invested in full-scale automation, and we will continue that by the end of this year, bringing in another machine at the high-speed automation rate. So that will turn things around a little bit. However, it will over double our capacity.
Luminex is not alone in this growth. The manufacturing industry has helped Austin avoid the economic hardships of the pandemic.
We've added, 2,000 jobs to the economy since COVID started, which most sectors are decreasing in employment. We're increasing.
Ed Latson leads the Austin Regional Manufacturing Association.
I was a little surprised back in March.
He says the business dynamics here set the city up for success despite how the rest of Texas or the country might be doing. And it's because of the companies we have in town.
We have a new world economy here. Facebook, Indeed, you have companies here that are succeeding in this environment, and we're just reaping the benefits.
Because companies are growing, their demand on manufacturing has grown too.
Because of the pandemic and the high unemployment that occurred, now the focus has shifted more to work-ready skills.
Laura Marmolejo runs the advanced manufacturing curriculum at Austin Community College. Her class enrollment has grown steadily since fall 2018. Back then, 138 students got credit for manufacturing classes. In 2019, 157. 2020, 166.
We've learned to do a lot more remotely. Even though, like I said, it's a hands-on industry, there's a lot that can be done remotely.
One of those students, Ashley Matke.
I basically had to find another job.
She used to have a job in ACC's work-study program. When COVID-19 shut down campus, she found an internship job through school at Samsung.
I'm basically like a technician. That's what I do, is I'm a technician and I work on the equipment that they have and stuff like that.
As the pandemic continues, Matke is getting ready to enter the workforce.
This is my last semester. I'll be graduating this semester. So I'm really pushing it. I'm going full time and I'm working 50 plus hours a week.
Samsung, probably most known for TVs and phones, also produces semiconductors. They're basically in every piece of modern technology. It's this technology that's caught the eye of the federal government.
Senator Cornyn and I and our Democrat counterparts introduced the Chips for America Act.
Last month, Representative Michael McCall met with President Joe Biden, pushing to improve U.S. manufacturing and bring those jobs back home from places like China.
In his words, he said, I'm all in, and I want to do everything I can to help you get this passed.
As for the people and machines making COVID-19 tests back at Luminex, the pandemic will eventually end. But Senior Operations Manager Rick Bean believes the company's growth will continue.
I think when you really look at the whole picture, we're not just a COVID test. We're a global company, Austin-based.
In Austin, I'm Mike Murray.
Welcome back to Boomtown, pushing past the pandemic. We're focusing on the good and bad that happened with the growth this last year here in Central Texas. And no place has been hit harder than restaurants in our area. It's been particularly cruel to restaurant owners and staff. The KVUE defenders sorted through sales tax revenue records and found Austin initially lost 1,685 businesses between 2019 and 2020. That figure includes 66 restaurants. Some have reopened, but dozens of others closed for good. The locations you see on your screen are just a few of the restaurants that did not survive. COVID-19 has immensely affected the arts industry. Music halls have gone silent, theaters have gone dark. KVUE's Bob Buckaloo takes us through the hardships that performers have undergone.
The music is there, sweet sounds of an orchestra, in this case the Austin Symphony Orchestra, performing some of the world's greatest. But the seats in the concert hall are empty. This concert is only available on video. Social distancing rules have forced 3 of Austin's largest arts organizations to cancel their live performances. It happened abruptly just about a year ago.
We have missed playing for an audience. We have missed our audience. We've missed being with people.
Also missing is revenue from ticket sales that keep the performing arts groups alive. Yet the symphony, along with Austin Opera and Ballet Austin, have survived, due in large part to technology. With the advent of robust video streaming and digital production tools, arts groups have discovered a new way to reach their audiences during the pandemic. For the past few months, local arts patrons have paid for access to the arts on video, like this virtual Nutcracker Ballet performed by Ballet Austin this past holiday season. And the arts organization known as Austin Opera has turned to technology as well.
You know, we figured out how to be operatic film producers. We've been presenting them at the Blue Starlight drive-ins, as well as online.
From opera to ballet to the orchestra, hopes are running high that we may soon turn the corner on the pandemic. Each group is already planning for live performances in front of live audiences by this fall.
I have no doubt that people will want to come in here to play again, and that all the arts here in Austin, whether it be classical or opera or pop, rock, country, whatever it is, will get back to normal, and we will be the live music capital of the world, live with an audience.
A hope, and perhaps a prayer, shared by the musicians and their audiences alike. Bob Buckaloo, KVUE News.
Central Texas is pushing past the pandemic. Despite businesses shutting their doors and expensive rent, we are getting through it. Some businesses are expanding and moving to Central Texas. Downtown Austin is growing with new high-rises, and industries are recovering, one step at a time. While this past year has been difficult for so many people, Central Texans have rallied, helping local businesses, supporting the arts as safely as possible, and giving back whenever they can. We may not be in the clear just yet, but Central Texas has proven time and time again that we will get through this, and we'll do it together. Thanks for watching.